Welcome back to the terrace. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid higher than Qatar's world record bid that was reported earlier on today. We're going to break this down. A lot of people considering Sir Jim's bid's going to be enough to win this, that he is in pole position to take over ownership of Manchester United. The Qataris, I will add, are also stating that they feel very, very confident in relation to their bid. We are going to break down this for you with the help of our friends at One Football. So make sure you've hit the like button, you get your comments in below, and of course, download the One Football app now, the best one-stop shop aggregator of all the best and most reliable football news out there, plus stats and figures and live action, live Serie A games, and much, much more. So get that downloaded. Now, where do we start with this today? And I'm going to start by just making a bit of a statement here about Manchester United. Selling Manchester United is absolutely imperative. Manchester United is a beacon of the Premier League, a beacon of not only British and European sport, but one of the most famous sports clubs on planet Earth, forged and built by the working class communities of Manchester and Salford. It is not only inspirational and motivational, but it is a church, a cathedral to many people, not only in Manchester, across the UK, but spread out across the world. The club being taken away from the Glazers by the purchase of a new owner is massively important, because the club's fundamentals, the club's traditions, the passion and the desire and the heart that filled Manchester United for over 100 years has been slowly evaporated, eroded by the Glazers. So as a Manchester United fan, the fact this is hopefully coming towards an end of a process where the main control or the full control is being taken away from the Glazers is absolutely imperative. And fans shouldn't lose sight of that just because their preferred bidder may not win this bidding process. The Glazers losing full control, and somebody that's investing their own money, not taking a loan, not borrowing money from a bank, not borrowing money from daddy, but an individual or a group investing billions of pounds of their own money to take Manchester United back to the top, is a step in the right direction, irrespective of whoever it is that owns Manchester United. Now, when it comes to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I've not been somebody who is as against him taking over as many other people across social media. The only element of his purchase that I am against is the report from a couple of months ago now of what I referred to as a double dip debt. What he was looking to do is borrow money to buy the club and not pay off the current debt that exists. That is something that I don't necessarily want, because that could damage the profitability of Manchester United, therefore impacting how much we can spend moving forward. It's the only real element I've had an issue with. However, it must be said that when you read further into these reports, this money is going to be this debt would be ring fenced away from Manchester United, and Ineos, the company that Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns, will have the legal obligation to pay it back, and no money is going to be taken out of Manchester United. So Man United will have no debt against the football club, and the club will be paying no debt. If he is to own the football club, that for me is how it has to be set up. That for me is how it has to be structured moving forward. I know some people want absolutely no debt, but remember when Roman owned Chelsea, they were about 1.3, 1.4 billion pound in debt to him when he was forced to sell. But of course, that money was never paid back by Chelsea. If a similar deal is done, that United never have to pay their debt for the purchase and the debt that's currently owed by the Glazers, it still wipes it away from our balance sheets. The debtors are gone from us as a football club, and that's important. Am I panicking that my preferred choice, the Qataris, may not be the owners? Absolutely not. For me, that is not something that worries me as much as the Glazers staying. Minimal investment from an investment bank, or Sir Jim taking a small percentage of the club and the Glazers remaining. That's my fear. That's my worry. I understand that Sir Jim is somebody that a lot of people don't want, but in my humble opinion, he'll be light years better for us than the Glazers. I prefer the Qataris, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe is not a bad option, in my opinion. And Blue Cheese here says more debt. And I've already said and already stated again, as long as that debt is not being applied against Man United, and we have today, tomorrow, next year, in 50 years, 100 years, no obligation to pay that back, and it is written in stone and signed in blood, it doesn't really matter if there's debt because we're not going to have to pay it, and Sir Jim's company will. So I wouldn't worry too much about that until the detail comes out. In terms of what's happened today, let me break down what has gone on. We know that the Qataris have put in a bid of around, and again, it depends on what sources you read. Chris Winburn has said it's around $7 billion US dollars. Some of the British press who have fed their information from the Rain Group are saying it's less than that. We know why, because the Glazers at any point would love somebody to increase their bid. So you'll find it somewhere in the middle. But the Qataris have bid, and it's a world record bid. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has reportedly matched and surpassed that bid. Now, a lot of people are confused here because there have been reports that Sir Jim is also willing to buy 50% and keep the Glazers there as minority shareholders. Sir Jim has essentially made a number of offers within his overarching bid. His main objective is to have full control of the football club and buy out the Glazers in terms of their Class B voting shares in its entirety and be the majority shareholder, because of course some of the shares are still on the stock market and it's going to take some time to buy them back before 100% shareholding can be had by the new owners. But the people that own shares on the stock market have very little power, if any, at the football club. The B shares Sir Jim or Qatar would be buying are worth 10 times the value in terms of voting rights, and the new owner would have 67%. 67% times 10 versus the remaining percentage, they have no power. So again, something for fans to absolutely not worry about in any way, shape, or form. Breaking down what was sent through to me here is this, and I'm going to kind of read it out to you here about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid. It says here that, and I've now just lost it. It says Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid is solely based on club valuation numbers and is for full control. His final offer is believed to be at the lower to middle end of the valuation range that the Glazers might accept. Although publicly it stated they want over 6 billion English pounds, it is believed by most industry insiders that the Glazers may strongly consider an outright sale for between 4.8 billion GBP and 5.6 billion GBP, which is 7 billion US dollars, which is a bit lower than the quoted amount, is what's been stated. The Glazers will still remain determined sellers for the right price. So again, that's a very important statement here. The Glazers want the right price or the biggest price possible. So when they and the Rain Group, remember the Rain Group conducting this auction, essentially, they are working for the Glazers, so they will always push out information to try and raise prices and increase bids. But it is indicated that 92 Foundation would effectively have to add an amount similar to their pledge to invest 1 billion to the club's valuation. So the bid from the Qataris is to wipe off all debt and to invest in infrastructure, where essentially what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is doing is offering the same amount, but because none of that money is going to be used to pay off debt, the Glazers would walk away with more money. So it's a bigger bid because of the way it's structured and where the money has to go, as opposed to a monetary amount that is bigger. So it's very, very important to remember that. But as it's being reported, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid is reportedly more favorable to the Glazers because they haven't got to pay any debt off with it, and they would walk away with more money. But the debt would all then be ring-fenced and taken away from Manchester United. So in theory, there is no debt for Manchester United with either of these bids. Absolutely none whatsoever. What remains to be seen with Sir Jim Ratcliffe is how much money would be put on top. And it says here that in the email that I was sent, it says Sir Jim Ratcliffe also has plans to invest in Manchester United on top, but has not listed any pledge amount in his offer because it is not required for the process at this time. But he has told supporters groups that new stadiums, new training facilities, and of course the playing squads for both the male and female teams at Manchester United will be invested in, and him and his organization will pump direct investment in, which the Glazers, remember, didn't invest one penny of their own money for 17 years. So, as someone says here, full sale only. Both the Qataris and Sir Jim have bid for full sale only. Sir Jim, though, has made some counter offers where he would be willing to take a lesser share to begin with a longer term vision to buy the Glazers out, which again is still better than the Glazers taking money off of a US bank and staying here and owning the majority, because they would stay for much longer that way. So again, sometimes in life, I'm a union man. I was part of the union. You don't always get what you want. So you've got to try and settle for the best of a bad situation if the Glazers are not selling their majority shares. So for me, I've seen a lot of people DMing me this afternoon. Oh my God, it's all going wrong, Terry. I'm personally still quite relaxed. There's a big chance still that the Glazers leave in the summer. I would prefer the Qataris, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe, as long as that debt doesn't have to be paid by Manchester United and is legally and forever removed as an obligation to us, there is no fear, there is no worry, there is no problems. Financially, we'll be in exactly the same position if we have the Qataris or Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It will then just come down to who Sir Jim brings in to help run the club versus the Qataris. Now, some will say the Qataris will get it right. Look at Newcastle, look at Manchester City, and I believe that. Some will say Sir Jim will get it wrong because he hasn't turned Nice into the best club in France. Therefore, he has a track record of not taking a club to the very highest level. You could look at it the other way, that he has experience running a football club or being involved, and the Qatari team do not. So it really depends on which way round you look at this. But what I would say to Man United fans, this isn't the doom and gloom. This isn't the doom and gloom that sorry, someone wrote a really weird message in the comment section. Doom and gloom that some Manchester United fans are making out. What this does confirm, though, to Man United fans, and you should be looking at this more than anything in the fandom scene, is the amount of rivals laughing that the Glazers might stay. They're the same people that said the Glazers weren't bad owners. Just go figure that for one moment, is what I would say to you. Thank you to CeeLo here, who become a new member of the Football Terrace. That's really, really nice of you. If Sir Jim really wins, get the Glazer era volume 2. You see, I don't think it will be the Glazer era 2.0. I really, really do not believe it will be anywhere near how it's been under them. I don't believe the stadium will continue rusting, leaking, and falling apart. I do not believe that the training ground will not be upgraded. I do not believe that Man United under him will be paying debt. If any of those things happen, then I'll turn on him like I did the Glazers. But I believe those things will be fixed. Changing those things alone changes the way Manchester United are run. Terry, don't worry, nothing is final, but it is not looking good. Qatari or you riot. Yeah, I'm not down the road of Qatari or we riot. I'm down the road of let's see what happens first. If the Glazers stay in power, then I think fans have got to do something very drastic. No violence, of course, but they have to pull their money away from the football club. I don't trust Jim when he's letting the Glazers stay. Well, that isn't his only bid, but you've got to look at it from this point of view. If he says, right, if we can't get a full sale, I'll buy 50%. And you can stay and have a say, but I'm still in control. And over the course of the next 5 years, slowly buys them out. Isn't that better than the Glazers just staying by themselves? If the Glazers reject the bid of Qatar, remember, it isn't Sir Jim Ratcliffe who is going to reject the Qataris. It will be the Glazers. I would still rather somebody come in and slowly remove the Glazers than them stay like they are now. So for me, it's not about not trusting him because he's offered them an option. It's about saying, right, it's going to be a slower process than we want, my friend. So I get where you're coming from, but that doesn't make me distrust Sir Jim. He is still trying to remove the Glazers from power. How much does the UK government get in tax if it's sold for 7 billion? Nothing. The UK government will get absolutely nothing from this sale because Manchester United's head office we're a registered business out of the Cayman Islands. So when I say they get nothing, they get a small amount. Man United is registered through the Cayman Islands, so the tax will be done through them, which is minuscule capital gains tax in the Cayman Islands is minuscule compared to that of the United Kingdom. So the UK government is getting a very, very small amount of money because people for years have called the Glazers stupid, and it's always been a comment that's made my skin crawl because of the ignorance around that comment. They're not stupid. They're very astute business people, invested not one penny of their own money, and they're going to walk away with £4 to £5 billion. They've run it through the Cayman Islands, so they're not even going to get taxed. And people say they're stupid. Anyone who's given them money, and I include myself in this for a period of time, we are the stupid ones. Man United fans are the stupid ones in this for funding them for 17 years. And by the way, I funded them for the best part of 12 years of that. So I'm including myself. For 12 years, I was an idiot. 12 years an idiot. Could make a film about it. 12 years an idiot, I was. And anyone giving them money now, again, it's stupidity. It's blind love. It's blind love, but blind love is a kind of version of stupidity in many ways. Have any of you ever been blindly in love and you ignore bad things because of love? You'll look back at it in years to come and go, oh, it's bloody stupid, because I feel that way. Do you think Jim can do what Man City received? Well, you've got to remember, so Jim doesn't have the money that Sheikh Mansour or Saudi have, but that doesn't matter with FFP. And this is where the lack of education by the big broadcasters into fans is horrendous. Owners now can only pump £100 million every 3 years into the football club themselves for players. Sir Jim is rich enough to compete with Sheikh Mansour in terms of money being invested into the football club, because he's worth about 10 to 11 billion pounds. So he can afford to put 100 million pounds every 3 years in. Man United, with no debt, by the way, have more disposable income per year than Newcastle and City put together. So he doesn't need to have as much money as them for us to be financially successful. Man United have had as much money in the last 10 years as Man City. The difference is they have better football people running their club than we do. That's the most important point here. Are we paying any debt? And who is going to be running the football club from a football standpoint? And if we get the best in class in to run the club and there's no debt, we will be successful, in my opinion, because that's where the Glazers went wrong and rivals want to ignore it. It wasn't about not spending money or spending too much money. We had bankers making football decisions for a decade after, well, almost a decade after Sir Alex left. That is the big problem. That's always been the problem. But for some weird reason, it's very weird. Someone here says, so listen to you. Well, the thing is, mate, I know a little bit about it, but we've had all the financial experts on the terrace that have broken this down. It's just weird that Sky Sports don't have them on to school everybody. It would just make a lot more sense, right? But there we go. That's just my take on it anyway. But yeah, it's one of those things. But, you know, as we said, we spoke about earlier on today, a world record bid has also gone in from Sheikh Jassim. Qatar have remained very consistent in this. They truly believe that they are still in a great position to win this bid. That's what they believe. That is what they believe. And that is what they've reported out to the media today. So Jim is very, very confident. And the Rain Group, their reports are just nobody's quite hit the target yet, and the Glazers are going to consider it over the next few days. It's very unlikely, by the way, that a decision will be made over the course of the weekend. The Glazers are obviously preoccupied with the NFL draft that's going on, so I wouldn't expect anything until after bank holiday Monday. The biggest problem isn't Sir Jim. The biggest problem is if both the bids get rejected and the Glazers opt for no sal and turn to one of the kind of strategic investors, you know, Elliott or Sixth Street or somebody along those lines. That's a bigger problem. But of course, most football fans switch off when they start hearing about investment. So they don't even know that's coming, really. It's just, oh, Sir Jim's crap and Qatar are good. It's very basic. Very basic. I believe Sir Jim is the right man to move you forward. Well, I've seen people like laughing about it online. And honestly, I find rivals laughing at it strange. The Glazers going, there being no direct debt on the club. We are still going to improve as a football club. That is not, you know, for me, I'm like, I don't really get what you know, we might not have got the Lamborghini, but we're going to go pick up a Ferrari. But you're still laughing. Yeah, it's a little strange to me personally. But I know a lot of people online have made this situation really weird. And they're probably regretting going so hard on Jim, because if they get him, they're like, shit, I've now got to say it's crap before he's even made a decision. And yeah, very weird. The only thing though, when I will change my mind, I tweeted about it in March, sorry, and people were like, "Oh, you said you didn't want him." If the debt is against Man United, if there's any debt that we have to pay, then I am against it, 110%. But he has stated, and I've read the reports today, that the debt will be ring fenced, and Man United won't have to pay it ever. And if we haven't got to pay it, it's inconsequential to Man United, the football club. Let the business people deal with it. But if we never have to pay it, what does it matter? Do you know what I'm saying? It's a bit like this. Say I say to you, I'm going to buy you a house, but I can't afford the mortgage, Terry. Don't worry, I will pay it for life, and I'll write a contract that states you can live in the house forever, and it's up to me to pay the mortgage, and you'll never owe a penny on it. Doesn't matter if I default; it won't affect your credit because I've signed that agreement. That's essentially what Sir Jim is saying here. Thanks for the clear explanation, Terry. Not a problem, VV3. V33. That's not an issue at all. We are also talking on the show today a little bit about Jurgen Klopp. We'll get onto that later and talk a bit about Poch, who's closing in on his move to Chelsea. That's all to come. Blue Moon here says, thank God for Sir Jim. Listen, you guys are crazy. Now look at this. This is it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Trust me. James Ducker just said that Qatar are bemused by today's media reports. Of course they are, because the media are not reporting the same information that they are giving. So I'm so not surprised to see that. I spoke to somebody today that I met when I was in Qatar who works as part of the media over there, and I sort of said to him, "How much do you think they've bid?" And he goes, "Well, a few journalists are reporting it right. They've bid around $7 billion US. They're bemused by the fact, genuinely bemused by the fact." The media in England, a lot of them are saying it was like $6 billion US, and they're like they bid $1 billion more. It's not being reported accurately. But James Ducker has said here that if Jake Jazim's bid was successful, financial sources suggest you'd be looking at around at least a month to complete the buyout of the Glazers' 69% shareholding and 6 weeks or more to acquire the 31%. So just so that makes sense here, this is the first time I've seen this. Actually, I haven't read this part today, that the Qataris have actually bid, and within their bid, they will be buying back all the public shares as well. That's amazing. That's amazing to see. Plus, I'm just trying to read here, so bear with me a second as I say this. So does Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bid as well. He will also be looking to buy that percentage back. And in the last round of bidding, that information wasn't revealed. So yeah, look, but I'm not surprised that James Dacker is saying that the Qataris are bemused because, as I say, depends who's feeding the information to what the story is going to be, and then the proof's going to come out in the pudding. Prime here says something to keep, something to keep in mind. Rivals won't. Rivals always look for the most negative story about their own clubs, even if like the principle of what they're saying is identical to their own. They always twist it into a negative for Rivals, but it's always strange. Jim will always win because he will keep the Glazers in where the Qataris won't. Well, he's bid to own outright. He's put the same type of bid in as the Qataris. The difference is that the Glazers might say we don't want to sell it in its entirety yet, but they may decide to do that. So again, that might help him. But a lot of people have said all along that the Qataris, that the Glazers want to sell in its entirety. However, they're not going to say that. You never say it. I went through the process not long ago of buying a business, and we knew the individual selling wanted to sell it, but he never told us that. Because if somebody in a meeting, first meeting to buy a business says, "Yeah, I'm desperate to get rid of it," you drive the price down. If you continue to state that we actually really want to keep it, we're only really testing to see how much it's worth, price goes up. Basics. You put your house on the market and doesn't sell for a long time. You put it on the market, you're stating you want it sold. People will typically try and push the price down over time. Typically. Sometimes in the house market, someone comes in and is like, I need to live in this area. Very few houses come on the where I live, very few houses. So when they go on the market, they're gone quick because people want to live there, right? If you're in an area where there's lots of properties, people try and drive the price down because there's options. It's all a game. So yeah, I get where you're coming from. I'm just not worried about the gym stuff like a lot of people online seem to be. Terry, your bid says Jim outbids Qatar, not Sir Jim bid similar to Qatar. Well, that's the claim the media are stating. So again, the Football Terrace titles will always represent what the media has just said, what story we're talking about. It's not my claim. A DJ, I know you've been on a lot of streams. Everyone knows that, right? They're not my claims. It's what the media is stating. That's what all fan channels do. Because no fan channel has sources. They're just reporting on the news. I'm sure now after 10 years of fan channels, you all must know that. Do you know what I mean? No fan channel, I'm sorry to break it to you, have sources. They are all doing the same thing. We read the papers, or we listen to a journalist, or we interview a journalist, and we talk about it. That's it. That's it. That's how it works. Sorry to break it to you. Sorry if anyone's, oh my God, I thought that you guys knew everything. No, we're just different to the media because we give you a platform to talk about it. That's literally why we invented this. That's it. Anyway, Terry, what do you think of the Poch deal and why has it been delayed? I think it's a decent one for Chelsea. I think you should have gone for Luis Enrique, but I get why you didn't. Why has it been delayed? I have heard reports that Chelsea have to be mathematically safe in the Premier League before it's going to get signed. So we'll see if that comes true. Because I don't think you're going down. You're one of your relegation rivals. One of the relegation rivals, Nottingham Forest, lost today, so that helped. But we will see. I reckon it'll be announced in the next couple of games, personally. The British media will favour the British man. It's simple. I get that, and then there are some people that don't want him because he's British. I've seen that as well, which is also as bigoted and disgusting as the British media hating on Qatar because they're not from Britain. So I'm against anybody that doesn't want the Qataris because they're Qatari, and I'm against anybody that doesn't want Sir Jim because he's British. There's no place in this world for any kind of bigot or any kind of prejudice. So I completely agree with you, my friend. Both sides of that argument are a bunch of bags. That's all they are, all those people. And if anyone in your life is like that, cut them out. Get rid of them. Nasty people. Terry, it's Qatar or bust. It's really disappointing. Yeah, but it isn't Qatar or bust. It's Glazers out or in. Like, it's Glazers leave or bust. Because they will ruin what we're building with Ten Hag. If they leave, we will get better. If they leave, we're no longer paying debt. We will get better, in my opinion. Nobody's going to part, including their future investments, with £5 to £6 billion and then let it rot like the Glazers did. The Glazers could let it rot because they were always going to make a profit because they invented not 1 cent themselves. People like Sir Jim Ratcliffe are not going to invest all this money and let it dwindle away. They're not. I guarantee you they're not. They're not going to do that. Why would they do it? It makes almost no sense, personally. Said that all along, not change that. As long as debt is gone and the infrastructure rebuilt, I'm cool with Jim or Jazim. Both will be a benefit. Yeah, as you say, as long as that debt isn't against Man United, directly or indirectly, I'm relaxed. Personally, that's been my view. I'm going to bring Canadian Cam on now to have a chat with me and have his say on this on this situation. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well. I had a bit of a Saturday off, but then all this news broke, and I thought I need to go live. I need to chat to my people about it. How are you feeling about it, mate? Because there's a lot of United fans online melting down about this. You may feel similar, though. Are you worried, concerned about this situation?
No, not even a little bit. I never happened. I mean, I guess I'm one of the weird ones. I've noticed this weird, and I'm probably gonna piss people off with this, but a weird like reverse xenophobia thing when Jim came in, and because it's the same thing that happens with players, where there are some people who are really against Qatar for whatever reasons. Everybody then flipped and was like, "Well, that's racist now. I'm mad at you now. Fuck Jim." And it was just like, yo,
Yeah,
really, you know what I mean? It was very much now they're turning against each other because they had different opinions on who was going to own the club. And I've always been of the opinion, I don't like any sovereign nation owning any club. I don't care who it is. If it's Canada owning a club. And that's just been my opinion. It's not about like the rules and regulations of what's going on in the country. It's more, I've always thought, if there's any problems in your country and you own a football club, then if it's sovereign money, which it is, sorry, like that's how it works for the Saudis and all the other, then that money should be going to the people in your country. That's just how I've always looked at it. So I can't be a hypocrite, turn around and be like, oh, I was so excited. I could never be like that because I always made comments about City. Same thing when Newcastle was happening. Also, I think it's a bit ridiculous when people use those two completely different nations, everybody, as an example of how it's going to work with Qatar. It's not the same. Like, they're not the same, right? The Qataris who actually run PSG right now aren't doing a great job, in my opinion. They are. So if we're going to be apples to apples, that's the apples. But that's neither here nor there. The reason I'm not worried about it is because we can't have all had the energy of we just need the Glazers out. We just need people who are going to come in and care for the club and make the right footballing decisions, put the right people in power. And like we've been saying for years, it's not our spending power has never been an issue, period. It's never really been an issue. It's how it's been spent. It's who's been in charge. So if somebody comes in and is able to take away voting rights and the ability, so this is where I get upset about like what I was reading, is because I didn't realize there was like a clause, and I hope this gets renegotiated, that if the Class B shares get sold, they turn into Class A, and that to me is wild. That's crazy.
So,
like,
so that's, again, I heard, I think it was David Ornstein said that, and that's probably right. But again, if I'm buying Man United, and I'm not as astute a businessman because I'm nowhere near the level of Sir Jim, I'm not a billionaire. I haven't run these companies. I'm not, the Qataris are supreme business people, highly trained and educated. They would be in my opinion, personally, there's going to have to be a clause in there. You're not going to give £3 billion to the. Let's just go with one of the bids that Sir Jim has made, and I'm going to go on to a comment somebody made. There's a thing that he offered £3 billion for a majority share of 50%. He isn't going to give £3 billion of his money to the Glazers and then have no power and just sit back and let them run the club. That isn't going to happen. He would have to be a fool. And love or loathe to Jim, these billionaires that have made their money the way they've made it, they're not idiots. So I heard what David Ornstein said, but it was very journalistic in, well, this is how it stands. And basically at the end, it was like, maybe it will change, but that's something to be concerned about. Of course it's good. You get a business expert on there. You get I don't know, you get a Warren Buffett on there to go, but what would you do? He'd sit there and go, Lord Sugar on there and go, Lord Sugar would probably look at him and go, but you'd never buy it based on that. So it's dumb. It's not going to happen. So it's not a worry for me. There's a comment here though that says, it's a weird comment, but I'm going to read it out. It says, Ben Jacobs has said he has personally been told that Sir Jim's bid is bigger. I wonder if Terry thinks he's wrong. I've already said that.
Bigger valuation. It's not a bigger bid.
Yeah. So the way it works is they bid around the same amount. I've read what Ben said. I've spoke to Ben personally today, but Sir Jim's bid doesn't include paying debt off and infrastructure reform. So it's about $1 billion. It's theoretically about £1 billion bigger because all the money's going to the Glazers, but the actual amounts are very similar. So yes, I've already stated that on the show, my friend. Maybe you were not tuning in. Keep the Glazers or pay the debt. Come on, you gooners, is what's been said there. This here says, if Joel and Avram hold on to 20% and Ratcliffe owns 51%, the two brothers would have 70% voting control. I've never trusted this Chelsea fan. Well, again, it's exactly what Cam just brought up. You're right. But I don't think anyone's giving the Glazers $3 billion to control them. I wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it.
No.
You would never buy a business for that amount of money and to own the majority share and have only 30% control of the organization. He just isn't going. In my opinion, he isn't going to do that. So again, it's just not something if he does, then we're in big trouble because it means he's dumb. And it means we've got a dumb billionaire that's invested in us. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm not too worried.
Keep it though on that too. When you think about it, and you kind of brought me around, it's like we all know why the Glazers would want to hold on to any of this. It's just because the money. The reason they haven't sold is because they're like United's a sleeping giant. It's a huge. You see it. Some of these franchises are being sold for now. Like the valuation of sports franchises have skyrocketed across everywhere. Like some of these American franchises that are being sold in the NFL that are trash teams being sold for $4 or $5 billion. United is much bigger than some of these sporting, and the Glazers know this. They're in that world. So people need to understand that. Like the Glazers are in the NFL world where NFL teams are being sold for more than some of the prices I've seen quoted for United. And the Glazers aren't dumb. Like everybody, like you said, they're not dumb. They're looking at this being like, hold on. No, I want more than what these NFL teams are getting, because United, as they have a full look of the books for United and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is worth more. They know that. They're not stupid. So they're sitting there saying, well, I'm going to get more money on a global asset versus a North American asset that is, yes, in some way global for some of the American teams, but not all of them that have been sold. And they're thinking, well, I want to get as much out of this as possible. The Rain Group are doing a hell of a job making sure people keep coming back and upping their bids. Clearly, that's another thing that people are getting. The reason, again, like I can't be concerned if Jim's coming in and being like, Glazer's fine, I'm going to keep you around and you can keep some money on it, but I want to run the club how I want to run it. I'm going to invest in the infrastructure. I'm going to do all that stuff. Then great, we're fine. Like there's nothing, we don't need this endless barrel of money that people are talking about to compete. We already have it. Like we're already the most profitable club in the world. Like people don't, this is the thing that I don't think people understand. They're like, oh, United can't compete with like Man City if Jim comes in and we don't have Qatari money. It's no different. We have to play by the same rules. United generate way more money than all these clubs, and we will be able to spend as long as it's approved.
We were talking about this earlier today about a different subject matter, and I'm not going to reveal it yet. I'm doing the Harry Potter thing. We're going to wait for the right time to reveal what's been said. Same as Harry Potter, they wait for the right time to kill him. Although he came back to life. But people have said for months, having Qatari owners and more money doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Now they're saying, ha, 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 you're not going to have Qatari money. Again, anyone who's speaking out of both sides of their mouths, which one is it? Do we need the money or not need the money? If we don't need the money, then why is this a problem? Again, dead banter and continual banter always makes you look a dickhead. But I want to read this out. This is from James Ducker. James Ducker says sources close to Sheikh Jazim's camp are adamant that their offer is on top of the bid to the Glazer. Sorry, offer is on top of the bids to the Glazers and are bemused by any suggestions to the contrary. So again, as someone said earlier, all the British media hate the Qataris. I don't actually believe that's true. It's all about who feeds you as a source. So Ducker's obviously getting fed by the Qataris, and they believe that and I said it at the top of the show, they believe they are the number one bid. Isn't it crazy? So Jim thinks that he's the number one bid. Could it just be that the bank trying to make as much money as possible are feeding out this information, try and make people think, who would have thought it? Who would have thought it? You know, it's there. And listen, people like, again, the people then they're rolling their eyes at James Ducker. By the way, this is where fans are going to show their asses about journalists. None of these journalists are wrong. They are just telling you what sources are saying. It isn't their fault if it goes one way or the other. It's your fault. What you should do is read multiple and then make your own mind up instead of blaming another man. Oh, but you said that, so Jim bid the highest. No, that journalist said we've been told this. You meant to read multiple sources and then engage your own brain and come to a consensus. But people don't. People will always fluctuate to the journalist that gives the news they like the most rather than what they believe the most. And I suppose that's just what happens with a lot of weak-minded people, really. And I know the football terrorist community, you're not like that. You are great people. But I've seen Twitter today, and I'm like, oh, wow. There's a lot of silly people out there. Cheers, Terry. Always quality content here. You know that, my friend. You know how it works. Someone who doesn't like content, though. Look, here we go. Your title. Hang on, I've got to do the voice.
Your title, literally that, mate.
Yeah, we're reporting what the media said. You done yourself, baby powder. Baby powder. Do you know what's funny? Baby powder goes in arse cracks as well. Your comment came out of an arse crack. You know what I'm saying there, baby powder?
Terry, I'm not gonna troll the fans anymore. It lasted one day. I love it.
Yeah, well, bro, your name is literally to stop big people's thighs chafing together, and you're out here saying that. Oh my word! Oh my days! Done himself out here today. But yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what people are saying. But as I said at the top of the show, it's going to be intriguing to see what way this goes. For me, though, if I'm being honest with you, mate, the more, and I said it on a video maybe 5 weeks ago, the more I see these stories come out playing people off against each other, the more I believe we're being sold in entirety.
Yeah. I think it's you don't push out this much information unless you're just realistically what they're trying to do here is they want Sir Jim to hear his offer's not as good. They want Qatar. It sounds like, to be honest, they really want Qatar to up their offer because they know this is the thing. The Rain Group know when it comes to straight capital and bottomless money, like Qatar could offer 10 billion and really not care. They really could. They're just not going to because they're not done. And they're like, we don't have to, but they could. So what they're trying to do here is, oh, Sir Jim's offer is better. So like, what are you going to do? Like, I mean, you really want the club. So what's that final? Anyway, watch Succession, people. Watch Succession. Like that's where you'll get some rich people knowledge on how they do business is what people seem to think. And I've seen also some ludicrous comments about, well, Sir Jim can't afford to upgrade our infrastructure the same way. Yes, he can. Like they're both uber rich people. It may be different routes of doing it. You already covered the debt covered stuff, which I talked about way before when everybody was talking about he's buying it with debt. I'm like, no, his company's buying it. It's on his company. It's a very different story. But they're both uber rich people. And if they want to invest in the infrastructure, they have the ability to. They will. There's no. But my thing is, when I'll ask you this, Terry, what would you say the number one priorities are if these owners come in? For me, it's kind of like, I almost think it's a tie. After going to Old Trafford recently and seeing how fucking bad that stadium is compared to, I've been to a lot of stadiums around the world. It's like a tie between upgrading the stadium and players. Like obviously we'll always buy players, but when I think about how bad that stadium is, and part of the reason, listen, going to London and going to Manchester, like I could never understand why anybody would want to live in Manchester versus London. So if you're a footballer, and obviously you're not living in Manchester, you're probably living in a really nice area. What's going to drag you? What's going to be the difference maker? And it's got to be facilities. It's got to be where you spend most of your time has to be top notch. You have to have all the things you want in that space. And Theater of Dreams was the Theater of Dreams way back when for a reason. It was top line. Like nobody'd ever seen anything like it. Now it's in the past. So I honestly think that's almost even with getting the players because you got to give the players something to want to come for.
Bro, you're bang on. So my view is this. It's 30-30-30. And then you got 10% miscellaneous, 30% stadium. The fans will feel it, players will feel it. Pride to be in that. There's already pride to be at Old Trafford, but it's falling apart. Training facilities, and then players. You split it into those three categories. If you look at it as normal work, I remember when I moved into a different department of a particular bank, and the kind of the prestige of that department and that part that was amazing. Like you rung up a company for a meeting, you got meetings because of who you worked for. It was crazy. Yeah. That for me is like the stadia, but the bank had to invest in that. Then you have the training ground facilities, or what you would probably call the benefits in a company. Great pensions, great share plans. Your offices, these things where you go, I like working here. Great health insurance. I used to get dental insurance. I used to get like 70% of my childcare paid for, all through them. That stops you wanting to leave. And then what you have is players. That's the company investing in talent. And that's what Man United have got to do. You make the training facility and at that top class, you improve that stadium and grow that stadium to an even bigger size. And then you hire the best people in class, both at board level, football management level, and recruitment level, and player-wise. And it sends a message. It sends a message into the dressing room. This place is serious. Newcastle haven't even fixed up everything yet. But the message is clear. You've seen the improvement in the players, the manager, the attitude, the fans. In 18 months has been amazing. And that both the Jim and the Qataris can do that at Man United. So I don't think one is more important than the other. I think there is a very fine and even balance about where that investment needs to go. But, one of the things in that interview with Piers Morgan that Cristiano got right, he said like the same chef was there, which was fine. Great, still makes great food. But the fact that he left in 2009 and came back and everything was the same, but just old, there's a part of you that's like, oh, have you ever like moved house to a new town and you change gyms and the new gym has got old stuff and you kind of walk in and it's like, oh, it's not as nice. Imagine that's your job there. You are going to feel demotivated as soon as you walk in because it's not as good, not as nice as everywhere else you've been. So we've got to improve those things, definitely.
It's definitely like, and the thing, I guess, for people who don't work in office spaces or whatever and get because I've seen people not fully understand the infrastructure side, and some people talk about it differently. But for me, it's like I work in an office right now that's a temp office, and we're moving in August, and like that was one of the big announcements in the first quarter, and everybody's like, you could feel the mood change because we're like, all right, cool, we're getting serious. You're investing in like an actual like proper office for us now.
Yeah,
like you're giving us something to be proud of, and I think that to me, I always struggle with, like, I think the 30-30 is a pretty good way to look at it. So I was always struggling with, like, players will always want to come play for us for the prestige or whatnot. But what happens when you're just old school and you run out of like having reasons to come. And we're not there yet, but that is something that's like got to be a reality. Like everything in sport, the same way I talk about the treble was eventually going to be matched at some point. At some point, United will fall behind when it comes to that side of the game that we don't see. It's not all about just the players on the pitch, and we have to catch up there. So I hope the debt gets cleared, because that's the easiest way to then invest. Because once the debt's cleared, you can be like, well, we can invest our money on players, and then his money's got to go on the infrastructure. That's how it's got to work.
Yeah, mate, absolutely right. And this is why I don't think either of, if someone buys a club outright, I don't think it will fail. They can't let it fail, because even if Sir Jim wants to make a profit in 15, 20 years, he can't run it how the Glazers did, because we are losing young fans now to City. In fact, we're losing some people like Hamza in his 30s to Man City, but you're losing fans because the bigger and better teams than us now, more powerful teams, better teams on the pitch than us over the last 5 to 10 years, they are hoovering up all the new young fans. Every year, there's millions of kids that start watching football. Lots of them will not pick Man United because of success. So in 20 years' time, we won't be as valuable as we are now, even with inflation, because we won't have as many fans. Because without being morbid, every year fans die off. If you're not kind of replenishing that with a sort of natural attrition, you're going to lose fans. You lose fans, you have less people buying products, which is what the commercial people put on. And if less people are watching us in 20 years' time, the commercial deals are lower, meaning you're not going to sell us for as much money. So they have to make us a success on the pitch. They have to keep attracting new fans. They have to grow the stadium so there's even more match day revenue. If they do that, yeah, I don't care if they sell us a £10 billion in 20 years' time. As long as they've got us to be the best team on the football pitch in games, I don't really care if they make a profit out of us. For me, that's a win-win. That is a win-win for me, but yeah, that's why
it's crazy that people don't want businessmen to make money. Like, that's the part that also is hilarious, when people are like, oh, you just did it for profit. I'm like, no shit. Listen, listen, people, he can love United all he wants, but you're about to put $3 billion on the table to not make any profit. You've never in your life invested in anything. I'm sorry. If you truly believe that there's anything in the world that you can love so much that you will take a large part of your fortune and just pass it off for a plaything just so it's like something you love, then I don't know where your priorities are at, because it's definitely not me. I'm not putting my money in something that I'm not trying to make money out of, no matter how much I love it. If I'm putting that much money down, I need to make money.
Luke here says, I'm sure Qataris will take over when the season finishes. 6 billion in the pocket change for them. It's just a waiting game. And again, they're playing it down. We don't want to over. You'll also find this. Clubs do this all the time. When you buy something, these rich people want to play down how much they paid because they want to be seen to be winners. I wouldn't be surprised if they paid 6 billion, but they say, no, we paid 5. The Glazers might say they paid 6.5. It's all going to be offshore in the Cayman Islands. No one's ever going to see the paperwork, but the Glazers will want to boast they got the best deal possible. The Qataris will want to boast they got the best deal possible. And depending on who you support, you'll believe the story that best suits your narrative. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Question, Terry. Liverpool is 4.7 billion worth. The Boston Red Sox is 4.5. Shouldn't Liverpool be worth much more since football is bigger globally?
I can answer that. The reason why it's not is, and we talked about this in the group chat where I was like, North American sports and the way we do our commercial deals, it's chaotic with games, right? Baseball just had to put in a rule to make the games shorter because they're so long. If you think about the commercial value that goes into, and also the Boston Red Sox play 170 games a year. Let's keep that in mind. 70 games a year. It's insane how many I'm not a baseball fan, but it's a crazy amount of games. It's the most games in any sport that you play. So you have all those concessions. You have all that commercial value. So you have to think about all the money that's going in for people watching. The Boston Red Sox are a huge baseball fan franchise. They're not like a small, people watch them when they're good. No, Boston Red Sox, everybody loves, plain and simple. So they get so much viewership, and for hours, someone's on my door, and for hours upon hours every other day, you can't
Man, I went to watch the Chicago Cubs play a few years back, and it weirded me out that the game was maybe 2/3 in, and people were leaving, and I was like, why is everyone leaving? They said, yeah, most people don't stay to the end of the game. That was such a weird concept to me. Simon here says, bit off topic, but I really don't understand why Newcastle didn't target Poch before they hired Eddie Howe. He would have been perfect. But he was at Paris Saint-Germain. So that's probably, I assume he was at Paris Saint-Germain then. So I'm not surprised to see him as a manager they didn't get because of that kind of fact, really. That's what I would say, buddy. That would be my assumption. 18 months ago, Poch, he definitely was at Paris Saint-Germain then, because he was there when I got my hair transplant in February last year. So he would definitely have been there, my friend. That's why that happened. I hope they do make profit, means success, not effing cash cows like the Florida vampires. Exactly, my bro. I could not agree with you more. You will always be as big as Real Madrid. I can't believe we are here. But that's not true. That isn't true. Man United need to remain successful. People don't remember this. In the late 80s, early 90s, Old Trafford was half empty because people had even the locals had become disenfranchised. We've been so bad for so long, which is why the other day when people were playing down what Fergie rebuilt, we had a great infrastructure, massive fan base. The stadium was half empty. But through the success he was building, they expanded, grew the fan base to what it is. So Matt did the same thing throughout the 50s and 60s. And then we did the 70s and 80s where it fell apart. And then Fergie did his 25 years. And in the last decade, it started to regress slightly. We need to keep bringing in the new fans. It's as simple as that, my friend. From a commercial standpoint, we need to. And it's important. Absolutely is. Do the Glazers still take dividends if they keep 20%? Potentially, yes. But it depends if they have the voting rights. So if I own 80% of the business and Cam owns 20, and Cam wants dividends at the end of the year, but I have a majority say, I can say no one's getting dividends because I have a majority control over the business. Unless, like when I buy businesses, I have it written in the beginning that nobody can stop my dividends. That's what I do. So that's a pre-existing.
What they'll do.
Yeah. That's a pre-existing condition that only I can say no to my dividends. But that's again, and if I'm doing that on small and local, like medium-sized businesses, these guys are doing it at the tops. You know what I'm saying? They're not just going to be like, no billionaire is going to let another man control his money. It just isn't going to happen, in my opinion. I wanted to play a video, though, and I want to get your take on this, people. We did say we'd mention it, but this is Jurgen Klopp having a go at his own fans. Listen to this.
It's good that in this case that we make the decisions and we don't let especially not the people make the decisions who write on social media commentaries or stuff like this, because that's the only one you hear. The other guys who are happy with what we are doing or not happy with what we are doing, they just keep it with themselves. It's fine and they like
it. Goes on there, but listen, I have to say this. It's the second time he's had a pop at his own fans. And a lot of Liverpool fans to me today have said, no, we don't challenge his starting lineups. We don't challenge the transfer decisions. He's talking about like the Hussams of this world and the Tom Littles that criticize him. Do you think it's right for managers? Because Ollie did this and got a lot of stick for it. Do you think it's right for managers to have a go at Liverpool fans just because they're criticizing him? Like, do you think that's right of him to do that? Because you now know that all the top reds, every time someone like Hussam now tweets his dissatisfaction at something he does or a result or a transfer decision, they're going to get 10 times more abuse because Klopp has essentially said, do not listen to them. That's mad for me.
I love it. I love it because that's exactly what he just did. He basically is like, you're either with me or you're with them. Plain and simple. He's like, it's like, I'm not. He basically said, everybody who has a poor opinion of me, he's like, cool. Well, nobody cares over here on this side. We don't listen to you, which is something I don't think, like, I've seen coaches. It happens like in all sports. It's not just like the press conferences are super glorified for football. It's completely like other sports. They're big, but football, it's like the press conference is its own thing. Everybody wants to talk about what's the manager going to say. In other sports, like people are like, he said some shit and they forget about it. This won't be forgotten because now I don't know if it's right. I don't know if it's wrong. Because at the end of the day, if people can go at him, he's like, all right, well, I hear you. I can say what I want. I don't know. Like if I'm Klopp, I'd have no problem doing it because Klopp's clearly very protected. There are some managers who could never get away with that, with the outrage that could happen, like an Ollie, where it's like once a fan base fully turns on you and the toxicity starts leaking in, and then you have all of like the actual media coming at you, which was happening with Ollie. Nobody ever goes at Klopp. Klopp's a darling in the media. Like the mainstream media loves him. So he can do this shit all he wants and just smirk and walk away from it and be unscathed. But I think if I was a Liverpool fan, especially one who didn't agree with him, that would hit home. Like he's not your guy anymore.
Yeah. Someone tweeted me earlier and said like Klopp SLAMS fans, are you for having an opinion, mate? You're desperate. He's absolutely spot on. If Twitter warriors had a say in who we signed, it'd be a disaster. And I said he's wrong. Fans are allowed an opinion. And then people go, he didn't say they weren't allowed opinions. And this is the problem with modern day world. You don't have to directly say something to imply
it's
it.
Not valid. Yeah, like, he literally said their opinions aren't valid.
He said their opinions aren't valid, so what's the point of having them? And there's a comment here from Aguna that says, Klopp is spitting facts here, Terry. Fans don't know better than any Premier League manager. Agreed. Then let's get rid of fan cams, fan opinions, no one tweet on Twitter. Fans don't get to have opinions. That also means fans in the stadium can't cheer or boo something because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're looking at. That means fans should have no say in football. Bollocks.
See, I agree with that statement, though, where fans don't know more. We should have an opinion.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're not allowed an opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone here says, Terry Cappin trying to make out Klopp taking a pop at the fan base. He literally did. He literally did. He had a go at Liverpool fans who complain about his starting lineups, who complain about the signings he has or hasn't made. Are you saying that's right?
It's a good thing we don't listen to. Like, that is no other way.
What he said. Is what he said, and that is implying. That is what he's implying. And fans are the lifeblood of football, and we have an absolute right to criticize. What we don't have a right to do is abuse and be nasty. But he didn't say the abuse you see online is horrendous. He said their opinions on his starting lineups are not worth anything. There's no point listening to them. Shut your mouths is what he's implying. And if you don't think he's implying that, you're mad. A comment overreaction by Terry. I'm not the one who's overreacting. Klopp's the one that can't handle fan opinion. I literally have built a platform where 4.5 to 5 million people a month come and give their football opinion. I'm not the one who's overreacting here. It's Jurgen Klopp. And do you know what it comes down to, though? 100% Klopp. He probably has read things. He's gone, oh, that's stupid. But I guarantee he's read things. Because the report is he's been shown stuff. I think he goes on to say he's been shown things. He's on Twitter. He's probably been shown things that people have said where he's gone, yeah, they're fucking right, really. But if he comes out and says, yeah, you're right in your criticism, it will increase because that's also what human beings do. What he's now doing, Jurgen Klopp, is clever. If he and Liverpool fans, when they were very popular, this is what being a Liverpool fan was like. There was no dissent allowed anywhere. When they've started to fade off a little bit, when the dissent started from people like Sam in the summer, Tom Little criticizing things, there was an instant shutdown on it by top Reds. But as the season unfolded and fell apart, they all started doing it. They all started going, actually, we need a midfielder. This was wrong. That was wrong. And what Jurgen Klopp has done is planted the seed now to say, stop the dissent, stop the challenge. And I want it to go back to how it was, where whatever we say or do, it's spun into a positive. It is spun in a way where this is a plan as opposed to a problem. And if Liverpool fans can't see that, you're deluding yourself because it's absolutely horrendous to say that fans are not allowed an opinion. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was slammed for saying the noisiest fans are not always the best fans. That's not I'm not even saying that all the fans complaining are right. I'm stating they're allowed an opinion. Now, I know people go, he never said they're not allowed. His words will now create abuse online for anybody that dissents. And he knows exactly what he's doing because he's a very, very clever man, Jurgen Klopp. And I just thought it was a little bit underhand, to be honest.
Took a moment to be like, I'm going to say this as I'm going to make it so I don't become a target, but I'm going to make my point very clear. He had that, let's just say, Klopp's always pretty, like, in the thing, he's pretty quick with his words and whatever. This guy was pausing left, right, and center, like, let's just say it's better. Like, that's a man who knows what he's doing.
Even the smile on his face, right? That's a smile of, I really want to call these people a bunch of but I can't
But I
because
can't.
I'll get in trouble. And he was based that smile for me was like, and by the way, fans sometimes do write the maddest stuff online. We've all had opinions on football that I reckon if you put it in front of professionals, they'd laugh at it, right? But we're entitled to do it. And I don't think managers should be coming out and saying that fans are not allowed to complain. Fans are not allowed to have opinions because we are the lifeblood and we're the most important part of football. And without us, the whole damn stack of cards falls down. And half these people would be stacking shelves in supermarkets, on building sites and oil rigs and doing all sorts of manner of jobs. They're privileged. They're privileged to be footballers. They've worked hard to get there, but don't forget who put you there. The fans who have built this industry for you, man. So, yeah, for me, they shouldn't be out here, any footballer, they shouldn't be out here having a go at fans, barring abuse. If you get nasty and abusive, you can be angry at times. If I look at abuse in a way, like there's heinous stuff that gets said. Once you've criticized a player a few times, you're going in and in every week, it gets a little bit too much.
It's
But
got to be real.
yeah.
And the thing is, like, there's a difference between everybody. Like, I understand it, like criticism and abuse. Like, there's a very big difference in like I've seen, and again, I always use basketball as an example because they get really close to the players. They can get real close and they can say some stuff. And I've seen dudes say like, you're like calling guys out saying they'll fight him, like blah blah blah. And it's like that's where you're kind of like, yo, like that's not the opinion you're allowed to give. That's not the criticism. You can tell someone they suck. You can go on. You're like, you're terrible today. They have to take that. That's part of the job. Like my boss tells me I suck sometimes, for fuck's sakes. Like if you suck on the pitch, like you've got to take that. If you're not playing well, you've got like Harry Maguire's a joke because he just can't take anything being said about him, and it's all valid. It's facts. But like when you see an Ivan Toney, that's a bad example, Zaha, come out and like post Twitter messages of people calling him the N-word and monkey and such. It's like, yeah, that's where you call it out. That's where you're like, this is stupid. Like, are you serious? Like, it's that deep. Calling for people, like all the shit Rashford got for helping kids during that time. Yes, we all know it took away from his football, but he was doing it during a time in the world where football didn't matter. I'm sorry.
I totally agree. I've gone live and shouted when talking about players before. I was disgusted at Sancho pulling out that tackle the other day, and I went in hard and I called him weak, and I stand by that in that moment. I stand by it. I don't see that as abusive, even though I was frustrated and angry. What would be is after that point, all I ever do is get on at him and never praise him again and never the next game, I literally was like, what he did today was great. I enjoyed that, even though I don't think he's got a future at the club. There's no balance from a lot of people. Guna's back here and says, yeah, Terry, I disagree with that. He says managers have every right to have a go at fans, just like we do against players. My apology if you misunderstood. So I don't disagree with you. Klopp has got every right to do what he did, but I don't think what he did is right.
Yeah,
but there's a difference. I'm not saying he shouldn't have free speech, but I'm criticizing what he did because I think morally it's wrong. However, of course he's got the right to do it. I'm not suggesting that he should have the rights to speak taken away. 110%. Blue here says, say no to dirty oil money. So Jim is the right man. This guy's a City fan. That's a bit weird. That's a little bit weird. People say things like, say no to dirty oil money.
I think
and put fuel in their car.
I think that's a joke in the sense where like he knows he's got dirty, like, and everybody thinks Qatar is going to be better than Jim, so they're like, go with Jim. One thing I wanted to say before I forget on the Jim thing, that he did something extremely clever, and you'll remember this. Remember his interview where they asked him about buying United, and then they asked him about the Glazers, and he said the Glazers are really nice people, and every United fan lost their minds. And the whole time I remember being like, why would a man who wants to buy the club go on public TV and say anything negative about the people he's about to engage with? Billionaires are about ego, and they're about making sure they're seen in a certain light. Jim Ratcliffe going on national TV and praising the Glazers for being nice people was just a setup move to be like, see, we're cool, we're good, now let's talk business. Like, these are the small things that these business guys do.
And bro, we see this with managers. People say, I don't want a yes man. So when they praise the ownership that most fans hate, that makes him a yes man. No, you're more likely to make headway with the owners and be able to befriend and help manipulate their decision making if they like you than if you're out there in the press calling them dickheads.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to always in life be combative with people. Sometimes you've got to do it in a different way. You've got to be, I call it assertive charm. You know, you've got to be assertive and push, but you've got to be charming with it and nice. And of course, again, on the outside, people get angry. It's a disgrace. Why didn't the manager call this guy out or do this? That's because you're thinking about it in your brain. But what do you know? Have you been in those environments? Have you worked in that level and that high-powered a job? Have you had to negotiate those types of relationships? And I'm sure, like most people always, and this is the thing with people, they sit there and go, if it was my boss, I'd tell him straight. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't walk up to your boss and just some people do, and then you lose your jobs. There was a story today that came out of a guy that lost his job because he was doing something in his signature on his emails, and it was company policy to not leave a certain type of thing out. I'm not going to go into what it was. I'll tell you afterwards. But it was that no one's to put this particular wording in their signature, and he didn't take it out, and didn't take it out, and left it in there. Then he went and did an interview with a newspaper and slagged his company off. And again, like most companies you work for, in your contract it will state you cannot speak negatively in public about this organization.
Any defamatory comments towards our company.
Lost his job, and everyone's like, it's outrageous he's lost his job. And it's like, no, he's gone against company policy. Now, unless you can prove that company policy is illegal, he has no leg to stand on. So in life, people, my boss is a dickhead, but I'm going to have to just work with him. Why should it be any different for football manager? It makes no sense to me when people.
Yeah, that whole moment during the Ralph thing, and like I was never a Ralph fan. I stand by it because he took a lot of credit for things I don't believe was his doing, and he just wasn't good for us. Like coming out and just slagging off every single player on the pitch, and then talking about how bad everything is, but never doing anything. Like you do that when you have like credit in the bank, when you've earned it. Like, listen, everybody knows Jose and what he's about, so he's always been allowed to get away with it, and he always will. He has that. Jose built so much credit in the bank that he never has to change who he is. Same with Conte. These guys built so much credit that like when you bring them in, you have to accept that they're going to do that. Otherwise, don't do it because they're not going to change. Somebody like a Ralph Ragnick or like an Eric Ten Hag, Ollie, like they can't come in and just be like, yo, fuck you, Glazers. Like they can't do that. You have not earned it.
110%.
Even Pep doesn't do that shit. Like, he could now. He absolutely could, but he doesn't.
You've got to be tactful with it. This says Qatar will be better than Jim. Fact. But I personally would prefer the Qataris. But I'm also barring the debt, unless the debt's against the club. I just don't feel as negatively about this. I don't put this fouled and that fouled. Have we done a deep dive into the projects that the Qataris have invested in that didn't work? Have we? And I'm not having a go at them, but this is the problem that you do. I always remember there was a political thing going on, and they were looking at this one politician, the things that he'd fouled in, and go, "This is why I'd vote the other way." And I'm like, "Well, where?" And I remember watching it on TV, and I was like, "That's great, but where's the counter argument for the other side?" They didn't present any of the failings of the other person, so there's no balance. And as soon as there's no balance, I stop listening to a certain person. That's just my take. Honesty here says Nunes got abused by our fan base, but also he gets a lot of love. Fan opinions matter, of course, but sometimes fans take it too far. Listen, I hear you. And if Klopp would have turned around and said, I don't like my players being abused online by our own fans, I'd go, he's absolutely right. But that isn't what he said. So, yeah, two different scenarios. That isn't the conversation, but you are right in that. Is Sir Jim clearing the debt? That's our biggest problem. So what Sir Jim's proposal has said they're going to do is they're going to take the debt, and his company, Ineos, is going to own the debt and pay it, and Manchester United will officially be debt-free. Man United Football Club will pay no more debt. His organization, which is worth tens of billions, will own the debt and will pay it, and Man United will not. My only concern is that if that ends up not being the case, I'm totally against him.
Then we're in trouble.
But if it's ring-fenced outside, which they've promised, then I'm just not that worried about it, to be honest with you. And that's all I've got to say. Terry, Sir Jim is a Tory. Yeah, again, I'm not gonna get into that. It is. I guarantee you'll find that most of the owners of Premier League clubs, if you ask them their politics, would be more towards the Tory conservative side of voting than the left-wing liberal side, because most of these people benefit from the business and the financial policies that those people hold. So it's really funny. There's a very famous artist I can't mention because I'm probably still legally bound not to say his name, but he always goes on TV talking about Tory this and, everyone should pay their tax and do this, do that. He used to bank with my department of Barclays and funneled all these money offshore so he didn't pay tax. And we used to sit there and be like, all these rich people that pretend to be like so left wing with money, when it comes down to their actual behavior in real life, they're as Tory as Boris Johnson. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. It is what it is.
No, I got a friend who, it's funny. So in university, they always push like the one more social group to us when you're in university, right? And then as you grow up and start making your own money, eventually you realize, oh, hold on a second, I don't care about tuition fees being a bit cheaper for 4 years if it means my taxes now are going to be significant. And it's like anybody, typically people who stay in that world is like they haven't hit a certain level of success. And I'm not trying to say everybody who's successful has to be conservative or whatnot, but like your values do shift when you start making more money. And that's every rich person, people like all the rich people in the world, the super billionaires, whatever, they evade taxes. They find all the ways to keep their money. They don't want to give anything back to anybody because they don't believe anybody else has earned it. And I'm not one of those people, but it's like, that's the same idea saying, well, he's a Tory. Well, his business values probably fall in line. I don't know what the Tories, I have no idea what it sounds like they're conservative, but almost all business people.
They're the equivalent of your Republicans, although they're not governed. Their policies are not so shrouded in religion. But they're right. They're right of center, right through to right wing, rather than the other side. Yeah, that's more.
Yeah, see, Canada doesn't even have that. We have liberals and conservatives, and our conservatives would be like Democrats. That's
what's mad. I'm not even going to get into this, but even like our Labour, which are more our liberal, like our kind of seen as our left, they all go to the same schools and grow up in the same areas as the Conservatives, and it's just mad. Like again, and then you get the fringes. It's all crazy, but yeah, I'm just not going to get involved in that kind of talk because that's just none of my business. And again, I've said before, anyone that buys Man United, you could find a moral reason that they shouldn't, whether it be who they vote for publicly, the country they're from, practices they follow. I'm just not going to get into it because at the end of the day, I'm not going to stop supporting Man United because of it. So therefore, I'd be a hypocrite to condemn it. So yeah, I just don't go down that road. This here says it's mad we compare clearing to shifting. It's a myth. So again, it isn't. It isn't. If Man United have no league, and again, this is what a few people have said in the comments, but Mark Goldbridge said the debt's going to be increased. Again, if the debt is against Man United and Man United has to pay it, or in 5 years it might come back on our books or whatever that is, then I'm against it and I don't want the gym. But if they're going to take the debt away and it's written in stone and signed in blood, metaphorically, and Man United will never have to pay that debt no matter what happens, then it doesn't matter if there's debt because the club is officially debt-free. So as long as Man United, the business, is debt-free. If the Glazers would have bought Man United with debt, but the Glazers had paid the loans and not Man United Football Club, it would never have mattered. It would never, ever, ever have mattered. Chelsea were 1.4 billion in debt to Roman, but they never had to pay a penny because it was just the way they structured the lending of the money, but it was written off. So for me, I'm going to wait, Idris, till the facts come out before I overly condemn it. Because some people are going too far right now. We don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, for me, I'd rather no debt anywhere. But if it's ring fenced somewhere else and somebody else is paying for it, what's there to worry? Thank you. What is there to worry about? Just my ECGs from my hospital visit coming into the room. All good, by the way, people, which is great to see. But I'm also very impressed. Resting heart rate of 65 at my age is pretty good. So yeah. Anyway, I digress massively. They told me it was good. I didn't even know what good looked like in that space. How did Man United get into debt? The Glazers bought the club with debt from a bank and put it against the club, and the club had to pay it off. So yeah, that's how we got lumbered with debt, my friend. Didn't Jim want Chelsea first? Why Man United? He wants to buy a football club. But the Chelsea stuff was interesting.
Words, so, Man United isn't for sale. He literally those
so
words.
But again, a lot of people at the time, go back and watch the content around that time. The feeling was he wasn't really interested in Chelsea. It was a way of putting himself in the shop window so Man United fans saw him. And since that point, the sale of Man United has picked up pace. So a lot of people think
the last minute.
Yeah. So I don't think he ever really wanted Chelsea. But there we go. Terry has, what is this? Wolf Parkinson White syndrome. What is that? Is that an illness? That's a very weird thing to say to somebody. I don't really know. Wolf Parkinson, it is a thing. What is this? No, I don't have any abnormal heartbeat at all. My heartbeat is fine. So yeah, thank you though. It's a weird thing to say. Weird people out there. But there we go. Listen, I want to say thank you to everybody that's come onto the show today. I really appreciate it. Cam, always a pleasure to speak. We're back with match reactions tomorrow, the Man United game, and of course Tottenham Liverpool. Do you know what? I didn't even know that game was going on until this morning. I hadn't even checked. I've been so busy this last week. So we'll be seeing you all tomorrow. A little fan channel review in the morning as well. Some good stuff will be on that. Cam, always a pleasure to speak. Viewers, make sure you download the One Football app before you go. But until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.